What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and in this video, we're going to be comparing the Motorola Moto G Power 2022 versus the Motorola Moto G Power 2021. Now, as the name does imply, the 2022 model is the successor to the 2021 model. However, the 2021 model still is being offered factory unlocked, and you can still find it at the various carriers. Now, at the time of me recording this video, the Moto G Power 2022 is only available at Metro by T-Mobile. However, I'm sure as time goes on, this phone will make its way over to other carriers as well, in addition to being offered factory unlocked. Now, of course, in this video, we will be going over the various differences between these two devices, but in many ways, the Moto G Power 2022 is just a slight refresh from the 2021 model. Now, there are some pretty major differences when it comes to the visual design of the two phones, especially the camera module placement and design of that, and the materials used, but as far as different features go, we're not really getting too many extra features with the 2022 model compared to last year's phone. There's also a few things in the successor model of the device that are a downgrade from the 2021 model. Now, starting off with the display. Now, with the Moto G Power 2022, we're getting a 6.5-inch display compared to a 6.6-inch display with the Moto G Power 2021. So not a huge difference there, but the display on the previous model is slightly larger. You can see though, when holding them up side by side here, it's not really much of a noticeable difference, but the bottom bezel on the 2022 model is a little bit bigger compared to the Moto G Power 2021. Now up top here, both devices do feature a hole punch for the front-facing camera, with that hole punch being centered on the 2022 model, compared to it being in the upper left for the 2021 model. Now with both of these devices, the front-facing camera is 8 megapixels. Now as far as the display technology goes, with both phones we're getting IPS LCD displays, and they're both 720p. However, one major difference is that with the Moto G Power 2022, we're getting a 90Hz display compared to a 60Hz display with the 2021 model. And it does give things a little bit more of a premium feel due to it being a higher refresh rate. But it's kind of a marginal benefit compared to the 2021 model. Now, as far as PPI goes, we're getting a PPI of 270 with the 2022 model versus 266 with the 2021 model. Now, with both devices, we are getting 20:9 aspect ratios, so a taller but narrower form factor compared to other smartphones that we've seen in the past. And the screen-to-body ratio is 79.7% with the 2022 model compared to 83.8% with the 2021 model. So it is a little bit better here with this device, and when looking at the two phones, it is a little bit obvious, again, since the bottom bezel, for example, is a bit larger with the Moto G Power 2022. Now, as far as internal storage goes, with the Moto G Power 2022, the Metro model of the phone does come with 64 gigabytes of internal storage. Now, I'm not sure if there will be a 32 gigabyte model of the device in the future. I certainly hope not. And then with the Moto G Power 2021, the carrier versions of the device come with 32 gigabytes of internal storage, but if you do buy this device factory unlocked, there is an option to get it with 64 gigabytes of internal storage. And then both of these devices do feature microSD card expansion. So that is a great way to kind of free up the storage on the phones by offloading some of your photos and videos onto that microSD card. Now, both of these phones do feature fingerprint sensors. However, with the Moto G Power 2022, it is on the back of the phone compared to with the Moto G Power 2021, it is on the power button. Now, I do personally prefer having it on the power button. However, it's not a total deal breaker either by having it on the back of the phone. I feel like both placements are pretty convenient, but my personal preference is having it on the power button. Now, the good news though is that with both phones, the fingerprint sensors are decently fast and accurate. So we'll give it a try first with the Moto G Power 2022. There we go. One more time. And then now for the Moto G Power 2021. There we go. Very quick. And honestly, I feel like the fingerprint sensor with the 2021 model is a little bit faster, but again, the differences between the two are not too extreme. And in general, I'm at least glad that they both do have fingerprint sensors that at least work well enough. Another awesome thing about these devices as well is that they do both support face unlock, so I do appreciate that we do have multiple methods for accessing the phone. Now, as far as the cameras go for both phones, they do both feature triple camera setups, and for the most part, the various features that you're getting are also very similar. However, with the Moto G Power 2022, we're getting a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera, compared to the Moto G Power 2021, which has a 48 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So essentially the only difference when it comes to the cameras is that you're getting 2 less megapixels with the 2021 model with the main camera compared to the 2022 model. Now both of these devices do feature portrait mode for both the front and rear cameras, which is definitely very well appreciated. Now as far as portrait mode goes, both of these phones do have that feature for both the front and rear cameras, which is definitely a really good thing. Now here's how things look through the main cameras on both devices. Then from here we can switch over to the macro cameras. And again, with the macro camera, you can get very close up here and have things be nice and crisp and clear. Then from here, we can switch around to the front-facing cameras in both phones, and there's me. We can then go over to the menu and then access portrait mode, and you can see we have those nice blurred out backgrounds. And then here's some of the other camera features, and it looks like one difference between the two devices is that with the Moto G Power 2022, we are getting dual capture for both photos and videos, which means that you can take an image using both the front and rear cameras at the same time, but unfortunately, we don't have that feature here with the Moto G Power 2021. Now, as far as RAM and processor go, with the Moto G Power 2022, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM compared to the Moto G Power 2021, where the 32 gigabyte model has 3 gigabytes of RAM, and the 64 gigabyte model has 4 gigabytes of RAM. And then as far as the processors go, with the Moto G Power 2022, we have the MediaTek Helio G37 compared to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 662 with the Moto G Power 2021. Now I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test with both phones here, and here are the results from that test. And you can see with the Moto G Power 2022, we do have a pretty significant reduction when it comes to performance scores compared to the 2021 predecessor model. Now you'd think that going from the older model of a phone to the newer model of the phone, you would have a more powerful processor and in general get better performance, but unfortunately that's not really the case here. And you can see the scores really aren't even close. The Moto G Power 2021 certainly is a lot more powerful than the Moto G Power 2022. Now what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then comparing your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how both of these devices compare with what you currently have. Now as far as video recording goes, it does max out at 1080p with both of these phones, and then both devices do feature 5,000 milliamp hour internal batteries. So by having such a large battery with both of these devices, you definitely will be getting at least a day, if not 2 days of battery life. Now unfortunately, neither of these devices do feature NFC, so if you do like to make mobile contactless payments, which is something that is becoming more and more popular all the time, then unfortunately, you cannot do that with either of these two phones. Now, both of these phones are made completely out of plastic, but that being said, they do feel pretty sturdy and strong. They certainly don't feel cheap by any means. And of course, these are kind of lower end budget phones, so you can't expect to have the most premium build materials like you would with a more expensive flagship device. But for what they are, I feel like they are decent quality, and I'm certainly happy with the materials that are used. And in fact, as far as the finish goes on the back of both devices, I think they both take a really good approach. Now, I do prefer this silver look compared to the Moto G Power 2022, but I do appreciate that both devices don't really pick up fingerprints a whole lot, and in addition to that, they both kind of have a cool wavy texture on the back. So in general, I feel like Motorola did choose pretty good build materials here. Now, as far as the camera modules themselves go, you can see with the Moto G Power 2022, it was moved over to the left side there in kind of a pod format, whereas with the Moto G Power 2021, it is centered here in this 2x2 format. Now, unfortunately, there is no stereo audio with either of these two phones, so if you are watching videos or listening to music, for example, then you're only going to be getting audio out of the speaker on the bottom. Now, as far as the layout of the various buttons and ports go, on the left side of the device, we do have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card on both phones. Then on the right side, both devices feature volume up and volume down. But then with the Moto G Power 2022, we just have the power button, whereas with the Moto G Power 2021, the power button also doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then taking a look at the top of both phones, they both feature a 3.5mm headphone jack and a noise-canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the two phones, They both feature a USB-C port for charging and data transfer, a microphone, and the speaker. So in general, there are quite a few similarities between these two phones, and in some ways, the Moto G Power 2022 is a downgrade from the Moto G Power 2021, but with the 2022 model, we are at least picking up some bonus features, such as a little bit more storage, and also having a 90Hz display. But in general, I am not really too happy that we have a much slower processor with the 2022 model compared to the 2021 model. And to make things even more disappointing, the model that came before this phone, the Moto G Power 2020, actually had an even more powerful processor than this device. So it seems like with every year of the Moto G Power series, despite this series being very popular, the phones get less and less powerful. So that's kind of surprising and really not a trend that I would prefer to see. But on its own, I do feel like the Moto G Power 2022 still is a good option. But if I was to choose between one of the two devices, I would probably go for the 2021 model just because it is more powerful. But if you do happen to, for example, walk into a Metro store and the Moto G Power 2022 is on sale and none of the other phones are, then definitely on its own, I don't think this device is a bad choice. But there is quite a bit of competition out there, so definitely look at your other options and go from there. But I hope you enjoyed this comparison of the Moto G Power 2022 versus the Moto G Power 2021. Definitely curious to know what you think of these two devices, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.